Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I am your host, Preston Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you?
Doing pretty good, man. Created a massive show sheet again this Monday and thought I was done. And a couple hours later, I had to put in about 6 more things, unfortunately. So busy head with free agency and trades.
The news cycle for the NFL is one of the wildest things, but there has been no year quite like this year.
No, there hasn't been this many quarterbacks available, though.
Exactly, or quarterbacks just moving, not even available. Like Matt Ryan wasn't available when we started the week last week, and here he is. So, yeah, guys, we have a very, very long show, so we're gonna skip the bull crap in here at the start, and we are gonna get right into everything that has happened in the NFL. We will also be talking about 2022 tight ends, our rankings. Kind of tentative. There are still some things that could move around, but mostly our final rankings. I would say if you're going into like rookie drafts or something like that, I would use these, if you draft before the NFL draft. But let's dive right into it. So we're going to talk through some of these trades, and we teased it on Friday's Friday Fix episode, which was a really fun one. You should go check that out. We had a good time with that. We did the Packers this last week, so go check that out. But let's get right into the Deshaun Watson trade. So the Browns received Deshaun Watson and a 2024 sixth-round pick, and they sent the whole house 2022 first round, 2023, 2024 first round, and then a fourth, a third, and a fourth in those respective years. This is a crazy topic. I wrote an article about this. Randy, what are your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, I mean, I think just speaking of your article, I saw a lot of people reach back out to you and give you like props for trying to put out like the best way you could, how you processing the trade and everything. And a lot of Browns fans don't have that forum, so it's nicer to be able to put it on paper, and have your stance out there. No doubt, like you said in there, this is a massive deal for the Browns. This makes them like once again a Super Bowl contender, depending on the suspension looming, obviously. But with the signing of Jacoby Brissett as well, it might quell some of the issues there. I think most Browns fans, at least from our friend group, were hoping for Mariota instead, but here we are. And in fairness, most of us were hoping Baker instead. So it's a massive haul, but it's rightfully so for the on-field product. I would hope that some of the other stuff would have lessened the blow, but I understand the Texans' point of view too. Like, you want to move on, but you have to get the right compensation back.
So in my article, I mentioned that from a football standpoint, this is a very, very clear upgrade. We are Baker believers. We have defended Baker for a while now. There is no argument that you can make that this is not an upgrade on the field. I'm not going to say a whole lot on my thoughts on the rest of it. Go check out the article. It's on rush4.substack.com. My new mock is there too, so you can just have a ball with that. But on the field, they now have the best quarterback in the AFC North, I would argue. I think he's better than Lamar Jackson, and I think he's better than Joe Burrow. I know it's been over a year since we've seen him play, but the last time we saw him play, he was an MVP candidate. So,
on a shit team.
Exactly. So I think, suspension definitely matters, but massive trade. I didn't think this was going to happen. I didn't think it would be the Browns. I thought I was fully convinced that it was the Falcons.
Yeah, I
Wh-
I was considering Saints a lot just because kind of a legacy of success there. But with a
yeah,
new coach, I understand the running. And there was news that came out today that the Browns were out and Deshaun put them in. He put them right back in after looking at the apparently the Saints and the Falcons rosters. He was like, "Gosh, shit, no, get those guys
yeah,
back on the phone." Because the Browns roster is young and it's studs.
yeah.
So I get
And
it. I do.
and the article, Jason Lloyd from The Athletic
Yeah.
detailed everything that went down, and it was a really good read. So if you have The Athletic, go check that out. If you don't reach out to me, I can send you a little link, and you can get like I think a free trial or something like that. But he detailed how Kevin Stefanski kind of sold him on the offense. So I find that interesting because Deshaun Watson has not run this type of offense ever in his career, whether it
No.
was college or with the Texans. So I'm intrigued to see how he fits. I'm intrigued to see what the Browns are able to put around him. They restructured Amari Cooper, and his base salary for this year is $1 million. Uh, Brissett isn't making a whole lot of money, so they still have some room to go make some moves. So
Yep.
we'll see what they're able to do. Moving on, we mentioned the Falcons. We're gonna jump right into that one. So Matt Ryan today was sent to the Indianapolis Colts. There are no jersey swaps yet, and so we went with the cartoon.
I know, but he was like so much bigger than everything else in the graphic. It just took me by surprise.
Yes, yeah, I know. I didn't know what to do with these graphics, but it's fun. 2022 third round pick is going back to the Falcons for Matt Ryan. When you add up the Carson Wentz trade with the Matt Ryan trade, they got Matt Ryan and a third for Carson Wentz. Now that's not considering the trade with the Eagles the year before where they
Didn't
gave up
they
a first, but
didn't they get Matt Ryan in a second and
I think it's
traded the
conditional.
third?
I think it's conditional. So
Well, it's gonna
maybe, yeah, it
so
could
was the
land.
last one.
That's true. That's true. But thoughts on this trade, Randy?
I think it's a good trade for both teams. I was kind of one of the solo voices last year, say it was kind of idiotic for the Falcons to draft Kyle Pitts, and get a piece for the future while also ignoring the current, state of your quarterback room and how much money you have tied up in that and what kind of rebuild you're gonna have to do. And I will say props to Arthur Smith and this team and Kyle Pitts even and Cordell Patterson. They played their asses off and they were almost a playoff team. And while I think they kind of punched above their weight necessarily, I mean they played their asses off and that's all you can ask for. And Matt Ryan was a big part of that. He was a little up and down. It was his QB2 year. You get the QB2 every year, but in theory that means the Colts are getting a QB1 in fantasy this year. So I think it's a good trade for both teams. The Colts needed a desperate quarterback change, and they need a consistent guy and a leader, and that's what Matt Ryan is. So the Falcons get some assets back, and they get to move on.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that this is very similar to the Phillip Rivers trade, except Matt Ryan still has a lot more left in the tank than what Phillip Rivers had. So I
We'll
wouldn't say
see.
a lot more, but I would say at least the arm strength is still there. He's a better fit for the offense than Phil is, I think. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this. I think it's a good move. I'm intrigued to see where Baker Mayfield lands because this was his preferred destination.
Yeah.
There was a report today that the Colts didn't really have interest in bringing in Baker. I think what they wanted is a veteran, but they know that they have to go get their guy here, like their guy for the future soon. So
Yeah.
Baker wouldn't be the right fit for that. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. Randy, take it away. Devontae Adams for a first and second round pick. How do you feel?
Yeah. We talked about this on Friday as well. Fantastic deal for, and honestly, both teams. I think I would have preferred this better first or the third, but again, I said on Friday, I think I was being a little bit greedy from a Raiders perspective. Devontae Adams is the best receiver in football, and while they did give him a lengthy contract for his age, I think at worst you get 3 years of greatness out of him, and he is the type of wide receiver one that with Derek Carr, and they already have chemistry, obviously going back to college. it does unlock the offense to a different level with this new coaching staff. That, I mean, honestly, I I think they're a playoff team. It's just how it's impossible to predict this division right now, especially with so much changes still coming. And it's impossible to give someone the lead. I think you would just give the stalwarts the lead and the Chiefs there. But this is going to be an absolute bloodbath. The AFC West always is. They usually split. It's going to be a lot worse now. And I feel bad for whatever NFC division has to play them. I kind of hope it's the South just for the fun of it. Uh, just because these teams get some free wins, except against the Bucks at that point. And yeah, it's gonna be an absolute shootout with Devontae Adams. It's a lot, first and second this year. It really puts a damper on what you got, but I think this is a lot of McDaniels getting the teachings from Bill, saying your first and second round picks aren't winning a Super Bowl this year, but if you get Devontae Adams, he gives you a shot. I think that's a lot of that coaching tree there.
Yeah. I think this is a fantastic trade, actually, for both teams.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying, well, he's 29, like he doesn't have much time left. You're mortgaging your future for that. Yeah, they're going out and they're trying to win it, and that's why McDaniels was interested in this job. Derek Carr extension is coming here in the next few days, I assume. They've already started working on that. Derek Carr is the future quarterback of the Raiders, and that is a good thing. I tweeted out, I'm not convinced that he is the worst. I think that you can make an argument that I know Russell Wilson's, he has a lot of really good efficiency stats, but when you watch his play, I would argue that there were times last year that Derek Carr was a better quarterback. And so I think the Raiders have every shot to take the division or at least sneak into a wild card for sure.
Yeah, Derek Carr has consistently been, besides his one MVP caliber year, he's been consistently a back end quarterback one in most statistics and most fantasy seasons. And that's with, if we're being honest, about 2 years of good receivers around him. That kind of all imploded after the injury. And he's been struggling. And yeah, they've got some absolute dogs there with Waller and Renfro. But this is game changing.
Yes,
That's exactly what they needed to do. It was either this, you trade Carr at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it was either this or tear it all down. What you see in the AFC is one of the craziest things I can recall. The NFC is wide open. The NFC, there are probably 3 teams I think could be contenders, like legit contenders.
Yeah.
The AFC, there's 8 to 10. Like that's absurd. Just absolutely absurd.
There's a legitimate chance that all 4 teams from the West make the playoffs, which would be unheard of, but it's fucking possible.
It's nuts. Yeah. Well, and there's also the AFC North that now has a new quarterback. So
yeah, but the North is going to be a shootout as well. But
outside of the Steelers,
well, the Steelers still have good everything else, and all they need is consistent play from the quarterback. Really, as we saw last year, not stellar, but consistently average, and they were a good team. And obviously, we saw what the Bengals did. They're spending money as they should to rightfully fix this offensive line. The AFC is a bloodbath, 100%, and Aaron Rodgers will still not win. Hilarious.
That's true.
All right.
I know. From one receiver to another, this is one of the most perplexing of the trades. Robert Woods, it was sent to the Tennessee Titans for a 2023 6th-round pick. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, yes, that's a 30-year-old, 31-year-old, 30-year-old. I don't know. He's over 30. That's a 30-year-old receiver coming off a clean ACL tear, and he became expendable, which we'll talk about how the Rams signed Allen Robinson. But this is giving him away. What do you think of this trade? Like, this is good for the Titans, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's less than what they paid for Julio, and in theory, you get more production just based on injury history. Listen, Robert Woods, if he's making $5 or $6 million a year, this is a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Unfortunately, he's making, I think, 16 and a half, which cut at least 10 or 12 teams off the list, and most of those are contenders. To go to a contender that has some money and actually needs you is spectacular for him. I still don't think this takes away from the possibility of The Titans drafting a receiver. It doesn't have to be first round or second even, but I still think they bring in some fresh blood here, especially with the possibility of Woods not being ready day one, even though I think he will be. It's just, you never know with injuries how long they actually take. So I think it's a fantastic trade. It's not really a win for the Rams. Personally, I think I'd rather have Robert Woods and the chemistry over Allen Robinson, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I said he was expendable, but he's not. Like he was a major part of that offense. Now it
Yeah.
did start to go away from him. Towards the very end, right before he tore his ACL when Odell came in. But
Well,
he's still a really good receiver that can win in various areas of the field. There was a time before last year where this Cooper Cup explosion we expected from Robert Woods
yeah.
instead, so good
Robert
player.
Woods, Robert Woods had a not a great start, but I think it was the last 2.5 games before he got hurt. He was a wide receiver one. I think both those weeks he was absolutely killing it. Then he got hurt in practice, like a day after they traded for Odell. So it's
Same day,
it,
actually, I believe.
yeah, it wasn't it like Odell didn't take anything from Robert Woods. Robert Woods' knee gave it to Odell, and
Yeah.
he, kind of dinked and dunked his way to the yards.
Yeah, for sure. All right, moving away from the skill positions and into some intriguing trades. This trade blew my mind. Shaq Mason is headed to Tampa Bay for a 2022 fifth-round pick. I don't get it from Bill Belichick's perspective because you know what? He just kind of handed Brady the keys to march to the Super Bowl again. This is an absolute value when you look at what Alex Kappa got on the market and then compare it to what this just costs. Just absurd. Good trade for the Bucks, correct?
Yeah, it's a great trade for the Bucks. This is the cap saving move by the Patriots in belief in what they built in the stability of the line to be able to move on from him, and it's probably a bonus to what they see in the draft class as well. He makes like 9.5 million a year, so it's a big contract. It's not. It's really big for line, especially interior line. I think we just alluded to Kappa. I think he gets either 9.5 or 10, so it's the same thing. So they basically traded for the same player and got rid of a fifth, and they'll probably get a third back next year. So they really got a plus minus here, and Brady gets somebody he trusts as well. They still need to address the other guard spot, but you're not going to get a better price than this. We never understand what Bill's doing, but it always works out. So I like what it's so hard to question him at this point, even with
Yeah.
shit like this, where you're like, I feel like shit, I could have gotten at least a third. Well, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
screw it.
and I'll tell you what, the draft pick market is strange this year. I mean,
Yeah.
Wentz going for a third and a second, and then Ryan going for a third. I know a lot of it is contract based, and teams are now valuing that with, cap savings with the COVID year and it going down. Like there are teams that are being more financially responsible, and I think that is devaluing picks, which is interesting. I wonder if we see that shift again, but yeah, Shaq Mason is a member of the Bucks now, and another couple of teams that we've already talked about. Actually, almost all of these teams we've already talked about.
Mhm.
Every single one of these teams we've talked
Yeah,
about
I was
already.
gonna say, yeah.
So first up, the Browns and Patriots swapped players, which is very strange. We rarely see this in the NFL, but it happened twice.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, and so one off, the Browns are on here 3 times. Case Keenum went to the Bills. I didn't make a graphic for that. Case Keenum was the backup for the Bills, and it was a cost cutting move for the Browns in order to bring in Jacoby Brissett. So that's that. Don't care about that much. He's never going to play. But this one, Chase Winovich, is headed to the Browns to bolster the edge rusher position, while Mac Wilson is headed to the Patriots to hopefully bring some speed to that linebacking core. That's desperately needed. Randy, how are you feeling since you like both of these teams?
It's rotational starter for rotational starter. And it's position needs for each team. I will say it's not like the Browns don't need linebacker help as well, but I think JOK kind of makes Mac Wilson expendable because Mac, he's got talent, but he doesn't do anything like spectacular, and we haven't seen much development from him, especially in reading plays. It's been in some pass coverage. I've been disappointed as well. Where JOK, you're never going to be disappointed in that part of the field. So it made him somewhat expendable, especially with probably a gear towards drafting a linebacker this year, or just figure it out. So you get a pass rusher who has had some impact for the Patriots over these last couple of years, and at worst case, he could be a rotational edge for you. Um, and he'll be the best rotational edge that I've seen the Browns have ever, if he is that. It does give the Browns some leeway with the contract negotiations with like Clowney or drafting an edge. Maybe they wait at that point if they don't get Clowney. But all signs are pointing to Clowney coming back too, which means we have Myles Garrett, Clowney, and Chase Winovich at edge, and that's ridiculous.
And there are reports that Tack McKinley is interested in coming back.
Yeah,
he's still hurt and still recovering, but he would be back mid-season, and he would probably be had cheaply. So
yeah, that means you guarantee 2 fresh, relatively dominant edge rushers at all time in the field.
Yeah, which is good news. That's how you build a contender.
Yep.
That's what we will say about the Browns. And then the last one that we are going to talk about, Yannick Ngakoue was sent to the Colts for Rock Ya-Sin. He went to the Raiders. Just fun names. I do enjoy this trade. I find it strange. I think that Ngakoue could have commanded also like a pick. So I think it could have been Rock plus a 5th or a 6th, but
yeah, that's what I expected, and that was what we talked about as well. But again, it's money. Yannick makes a good amount. Rock doesn't, and Rock Ya-Sin becomes at least a starting corner for them. And he hit a rough start, but he's shown some flashes this last season. I think he really improved. So this is good for the Raiders, and they're still not done the corner market. Apparently, they're trying to get Gilmore to reunite another Patriot with his coaching staff, and I'll be weirdly saying the Raiders' corners are kind of set at that point if that happens.
For the first time in about 20 years, sounds about right.
Probably since Jesus, maybe Asamoah.
Yeah, I forgot
because he was good for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Eagles.
Yeah, Eagles fans hate that name. Yeah, so that's the trades. That was just the trades.
Yeah.
So
And there's still Baker to come.
Yeah, Baker, Jimmy Garoppolo will probably be on the move at some point. There are rumors that the Panthers are in on Baker now, and so I think that
Panthers,
eliminates
Lions, Seahawks is what the rumors are.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance the guy like Jimmy G isn't traded right now, and he's either their guy to start if they're not ready, or he's the backup and a high value backup at that, and he gets traded at the deadline when somebody gets hurt for a bigger sum than he can get now.
Yeah, I almost feel like they have to trade him because I think he beats out Lance if Lance hasn't taken some steps forward.
I don't know, man. Every time Lance touched the field, he got better, in my opinion. But we do need to move on.
We do. Yeah, there's a lot. So now we're going to talk through some of the free agent signings that we didn't talk about last week. So pretty much we're going to run through these. So team by team, Bills have been very, very active. They've added Duke Johnson, OJ Howard, Shaq Lawson, Von Miller, Siren Neal, Tim Settle, Jamison Crowder. I missed the Duke Johnson news. I did not know this.
He's the JD McKissick replacement that they didn't get to have. But yeah, they added depth and added veterans everywhere, and obviously the Von Miller. And then I would say, in some extent, Siran Neal at corner are the two biggest signings here. Shaq Lawson as well at edge to help that development. But they're trying to win a Super Bowl, and I was rooting for him last year. I probably won't this year, depending on how things go, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, and I will say too, I think the OJ Howard signing isn't a knock on Dawson Knox. I think it's actually a commitment to using more 2 tight end sets. I think just having something behind Dawson Knox makes some sense too, because he was injured for a span of time there. So
and
I really like what they've done.
Yeah, and I'll say the Crowder signing doesn't negate any drafting of a receiver in the first round. It also doesn't negate the growth of Gabe Davis. It really just replaces the functional depth of Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. He can just take up those roles, and there's still no guarantee he's on the roster going forward. But I think he makes it because he's very talented and he's safe. Yeah,
Yeah, and he's cheap. I mean, 1 year,
yeah.
$4 million for Crowder. That's a good deal. Dolphins, Raheem Mostert, 1 year, $3 million. Alec Ingold, which is a big one, and shout out fullbacks. 2 years, $7.5 million. Just a ridiculous deal for a fullback. Preston Williams, this is a win for this show. We are Preston
Yes,
Williams
sir.
fans. I was very excited to see that they were bringing him back because I was nervous. But I think what this is the new coaching staff sees some promise in him, and I like that. They also signed Duke Riley and Landon Roberts. Just kind of
brought back the depth linebackers.
Yeah, which we had talked about, I believe. We did their
Friday
fix.
I thought they'd bring back one, not both, but here they are.
Yeah. So the Raheem Mostert one is actually kind of relevant. They signed Chase Edmonds. We talked about that last week. But they have brought in 2 running backs. I would expect that Savon Ahmed is probably toast because he was a restricted free agent, I believe.
Yeah,
and
I think Gaskin stays because they want the trio. I mean, San Francisco style. They want the stable of running backs. They brought in a familiar face here. That's always hurt anyways. So I think we could pretty much guarantee the Dolphins aren't drafting a running back unless some insane values falls to them.
Yeah. And if they do, I mean, then maybe they do cut ties with Gaskin. He's a cheap cut, I believe. So Patriots brought back a whole bunch of guys that they already had. James White, Trent Brown, Juwan Bentley. I find the Bentley one interesting. I think he was probably their second best linebacker.
He was their most probably athletic linebacker last year.
Yeah, and I would say Hightower was still better though, right?
Hightower was better, but in games that we needed, they need speed at the linebacker positions, they didn't have it because Hightower isn't that.
Yeah, and that's why Mac Wilson was brought in. But this is the Patriots way. Bring back your guys and just do it again, and hopefully improve through the draft. They need to. They need receivers. Jets, Tyler Conklin was a big signing. So he is added to CJ Uzama. And so I think we are now looking at what the Jets actually want to have is 2 reliable tight ends, which is really good.
Both are relatively decent at blocking as well as being a receiving threat.
Yeah, I think the Jets are going to be good. They also signed DJ Reed, Jordan Whitehead, and Jacob Martin. The Jordan Whitehead one is pretty significant.
DJ Reed's significant too, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think what it does is it gives them flexibility to not have to go corner early or not reach on Kyle Hamilton because I don't think they were anyway. But
yeah. We'll see what happens with that. I mean, DJ Reed gives them at least one veteran talented corner. You got an absolute hunter in Whitehead now at safety, and then Martin gives you a good flexibility at the linebacker position. They made some great signings.
Yeah, the Jets are doing things right. I'm actually optimistic for the Jets. I think they're going to win 6 to 7 games, and then year 3 of this will be legit. That's kind of my guess right now. Ravens signed Michael Pierce. They brought him back. He was cut from the Vikings, and he used to play for them. So they lost out on Zadarius Smith. They thought they signed him, and then he backed out. So they said, you know what? Fine, we'll bring back one of your old teammates because I think they overlapped when they were there. They also signed Marcus Williams to man their safety position to a massive, massive deal, 5 years, $70 million. Fantastic signing. Marcus Williams was probably the second best safety on the market. I would argue Justin Reed is still a better player, bar for bar.
I would put Williams there at 1, but
okay. I can see it.
Reed was much cheaper though. So now they have a ridiculously good safety tandem, and they have good corners. They might want more depth with all the injuries and guys like Everett and everyone moving on. Maybe another D tackle, but they're killing it. They always do.
As always. Yep. That's how it goes. Bengals are also doing good things. So the Cincinnati Bengals, I just lost my place here. They signed Lyle Collins to a 3-year deal. They signed Hayden Hurst to replace CJ Uzama. I don't think that prevents them from going and upgrading the tight
No,
end position, which is hilarious because he keeps talking about how no one's really appreciated him or used him correctly. Well, guess what, buddy? You're probably still a backup. And then BJ Hill, 3 years, $30 million. We talked about the Kappa and Karras signings
yeah,
last week. So they've added 3 pieces to their offensive line since the beginning of free agency, and that is exactly what they needed to do. So
that's good
I'm
because
impressed.
they only had one, so smart.
This is true. Yeah, they still need to keep adding. They should not be
Yeah,
done. Browns, we talked about this. Jacoby Brissett as their backup / starter for a little while, probably. Anthony Walker is returning, and then Jakeem Grant, sneaky good signing. 3
yeah,
years, $13.8 million. Really good return man. But I watched a lot of Bears games because of my love for Justin Fields. Jakeem Grant can move,
yeah.
and he's a nice little fit for what I think they wanted Jarvis Landry to be. So I'm intrigued to see what they do at the wide receiver position now.
Not that Jarvis is out of the question anymore, but still.
That's true. Yeah. Steelers, James Daniels, Miles Jack, Levi Wallace, Mason Cole.
Just solid. It's
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah. Miles Jack being cut was kind of a surprise, I think, but maybe not after the Jaguars just spent a ton of money on their new linebacker. So, but Levi Wallace, I didn't think he was going to leave Buffalo. So I'm impressed by the Steelers to go get him. They need him.
Oh, sorry. And then you get 2 good line pieces as well. Just lock up that line interiorly, obviously, but smart.
Jags signed Darius Williams. Good signing. They're just throwing
Yeah.
money around though, so just let them do their thing. It's funny to watch. Shout out to that Urban Meyer article that dropped today too.
Dude.
Bombshell. That guy sucks. That guy
Yeah.
absolutely sucks. I
Yep.
live right down the road from his restaurant here. Never going there. I'm not bringing him my business. Anyway,
It's
Titans.
fair. I wouldn't want to sit on those bar stools after what I've seen.
True, that's fact. Titans signed Austin Hooper. That has kind of gone under the radar. I feel that is a
Yeah.
good signing. That is a
100%.
fantasy relevant signing. That's
He will
he's
be their best receiving tight end right now, in my opinion. So that's a good move for them because they desperately need that.
yeah. Swaim's still there, and they'll still probably use 2 tight ends because they do that still. But yeah, Austin Hooper, Robert Woods, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry. That's an AFC South winner, I think, at this point. So
Yeah. And
um,
you still have plenty of space to add to it as well. So
yeah, facts. Broncos signed Randy Gregory. They swiped him straight from Jerry Jones's nose. 5 years, $70 million. And they also signed Alex Singleton, which
great signing.
yes. Also, I don't think we talked about it. Didn't they bring back Josie Jewell?
Maybe.
I don't know if that was official or not, but I think they've added 2 pieces to the linebacking room. There's a report that they're moving Baron Browning to the outside to compete for edge rusher snaps with Randy Gregory, Bradley Chubb, a ton of other guys. So that's the role that Baron Browning is best in. So I don't hate it, and I think he'll
Yeah, they
win some
should.
snaps.
He's best in the well, it's 1 year, so it seems wrong to say it, but in the Micah Parsons role where he's just constantly outside, inside, outside, inside. You constantly move him, and he can have impact. He's very good. I honestly I wouldn't be shocked if they still drafted a linebacker, but I think the Singleton signing, I think this says what I think about him. I think they're good.
Yeah. I mean, I
If
know
they bring back
Eagles fans.
Johnson, maybe I'd be even happier. But
Yeah, I know Eagles fans think that Singleton sucks because he misses some tackles, but
he
overall,
does, but he is there.
exactly. Smart football player.
You can't miss tackles if you're not in the right hole.
That's true. Chiefs signed Juju Smith-Schuster. They should have happened last year. I think Juju would have had a better year, and then he would have gotten a bigger payday.
I
But
think the Chiefs would have had a better year.
yeah,
At least early on.
Yeah, so they lost Byron Pringle, their current wide receiver, or their former wide receiver 2, and added Juju. And Juju got over 10 million, so good on him. he did a good job.
Max.
Yeah, with incentives, I believe. So, yeah, that's good for the Chiefs. Raiders have signed a ton of people. They swiped Brandon Bolden from the Patriots, Jacob Johnson, Chandler Jones, former Patriot, 3 years, $52.5 million. That was the bombshell news. They weren't really in the running for Chandler Jones, at least rumor wise, and then he just there.
Well, yeah, because they had Yannick. Why would they? And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we said Chandler. Oh, so they're trading Yannick. Okay. All right, that makes more sense. But here we are.
It's pretty crazy. Bilal Nichols signed, Anthony Everett, Micah Kaiser, Kyler Fackrell. A lot of good depth. Adding guys that can play.
They need help with D tackle. Nichols can help there. Everett, it helps at least give them solid, reliable depth at corner. I think he's potentially a starting piece right now with Ruckusin. And then Kaiser and Fackrell, they're not like game chasers at the linebacker position, but I think they're faster than the overpaid ones they had. And really, they have Perryman and then rotational Divine Diablo, who's a converted safety. Those are their linebackers until this signing. So I think it's smart.
Yeah, I like it. Chargers signed Gerald Everett and Christian Covington. Everett is important because Jared Cook is not on the roster. He's a free agent still. So Everett slots into the starting role. And again, that is a fantasy relevant position. That's fun. I like that we're getting good landing spots this year. So, do you have any comments on that?
Nope.
Cowboys signed James Washington to be their wide receiver 2 while Michael Gallup returns, and then wide receiver 3, and I believe the Cedric Wilson role. I am eating this up. I think James Washington has talent, and I think that the Cowboys are going to kind of show that. They also signed Dante Fowler. They brought back Leighton Vander Esch, and they signed Malik Hooker. So they've done a really good job here as well. I know Cowboys fans are upset because it's not big name signings, but I like what they're doing personally.
They also don't have a ton of cap, so
exactly, and that's because of the Zeke contract, and that's why Cowboys fans are mad. And I get it. I'm sorry. Giants, they've signed Tyrod Taylor to be their starting quarterback when Daniel Jones sucks. Matt Breida, and then Ricky Seals-Jones. And it looks like Ricky Seals-Jones is slated to be their starter right now. Though I think it could be a Hayden Hurst situation where they also bring someone else in.
Which is perfectly fine, because Ricky has bounced around. He's not really proven anywhere, but when he's been a starter, he's been fantasy relevant. So until that happens, and we know how rookie tight ends are, Ricky Seals-Jones is a late round tight end that I'm interested in right now.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a really good player. Eagles re-signed Greg Ward. Missed that news. So I'm learning things tonight, and that's fantastic.
You're welcome.
They re-signed Greg Ward, Jason Kelsey. They cut Fletcher Cox, and then were able to bring him back on a 1-year deal, 2-year deal. 2-year deal, I think.
He's straight I'm not moving. At this point, I'm staying.
Yeah. And then Anthony Harris, they also brought back. So the Eagles are doing weird things. I didn't expect them to bring back Fletcher Cox, and I know a lot of people have slotted Jordan Davis or Devontae Wyatt in for them. I don't know that Fletcher Cox being back short term stops them from doing that, but I also think that they have other needs that they could address now. So Commanders, they swiped J.D. McKissick and pissed off the Bills. Andrew Norwell they signed, which was a massive hole because of Brandon Scherf leaving. Tyler Larson and Bobby McCain. I like the Bobby McCain signing a good bit. But
I like the Norwell signing as well. While I don't think he played fantastic this last year, Scherf, he's been injured a lot, so in a sense, they played about the same. So I think it's a good hole signing, and worst case, you have a stud veteran backup, which I don't think will be the case, but that's the absolute worst case.
Yeah. Bears signed Byron Pringle and Equinemius St. Brown to be their wide receiver 2 and 3 as of right now. That's kind of gross. They're obviously going to attack the position through the draft, you would hope. They also signed Lucas Patrick, Al-Qadim Muhammad, Justin Jones, and Nicholas Morrow. What do you think of Morrow? He was a Raider, right?
I like Morrow. He is relatively athletic, and he's kind of a tackle machine. He's a guy that I've targeted really cheaply in IDP leagues every year. He's been hurt this last year, so it wasn't a fruitful signing. But when he's on the field, he just gets tackles, plain and simple. So I think it's a fantastic signing. The Bears linebacker room isn't fantastic besides the obvious.
Yeah.
So getting that number 2 there is a smart move. Worst case, he's rotational. I think Muhammad's a good D tackle as well. So I like what the Bears have done. I mean, they're not getting gods by any means, but they don't have the cap to do it this year anyways. Get some do exactly what the fuck the Lions just did. Get 1 or 2 year guys that want to prove themselves, and they're going to prove themselves. I think the Bears have made fantastic signings.
I will say too, the Bears are in talks with the Bills' restricted free agent guard. I can't think of his name. Bates, maybe.
I don't know.
Either way, he is like the hottest restricted free agent on the market. Just a good player, and I think that would be a perfect addition as well. Lions, they signed DJ Chark, Evan Brown, and Charles Harris. The DJ Chark deal for $10 million. DJ Chark got what's that?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's more than I thought he'd get. I think personally, I wanted, at this point it doesn't matter, but I wanted the Raiders to sign him to like a 1 year, $8 million deal for it, because that's what he
got. Devontae Adams.
I know. I'm just saying. I think this is a good deal. I know Goff. People think he's really just dink and dump, but he has shown the want to go deep. And I think Chark can elevate that offense. And bringing back Charles Harris is enormous, in my opinion, and a relatively cheap deal, a lot cheaper than we thought he'd get. So good signings again. The Lions.
I think the Lions really relied on Charles Harris having really 1 year of production and said, "Listen, man, sign a short-term deal. We'll give you $7 million, and then maybe we'll extend you past that and give you more money, what you're worth."
Yeah, I think if he repeats, there's a good chance he gets extended this offseason.
Yeah, for sure. The Packers brought back Rasul Douglas, 3 years, $21 million, and they also brought back Robert Tonyan on a 1 year deal. And so Randy knocked 2 of his 3 signings out of the park so far. We're just waiting on MVS.
MVS, let's go.
Go listen to Friday's episode because just great content.
It's literally the exact contract I laid out. I was like, oh, I'm so good.
Yeah, it's great. Randy the cap guy. Vikings signed Jordan Hicks, 1 year, $10 million. That's expensive for Jordan Hicks, in my opinion, but also Jordan Hicks is a good linebacker, and the Vikings don't have. They have good linebackers that are getting old. Jordan Hicks brings some youth to that room. Not that he's a young guy, but good signing, in my opinion. I like what Kwesi is doing, being patient. Falcons signed Cordero Patterson, Damian Williams. I think this could be the end of Mike Davis. We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see.
I think drafting running back is the end of Mike Davis, but
yeah, that's fair. They also signed Casey Hayward, Lorenzo Carter, and Marcus Mariota. So those are big names. They've done a really good job. I really like what Terry Fontenot is doing. I think Mariota making $9 million a year may sway them from reaching on a quarterback this year. But like you put it, I think before the show, did we talk about this during the ride? I don't think so.
I'm not sure. Just
essentially, you think that they're just going to take the quarterback that they want if he's there, and if he's not, they're just not gonna reach, and it makes sense.
No, because they have massive holes to fill as well. So we'll see.
For sure. Panthers have been really active as well. Rashard Higgins, they extended DJ Moore. They signed Bradley Bozeman. They signed Matt Ioannidis. Didn't know that. That's good. Corey Littleton, former Raider. Damian Wilson and Dante Jackson, they were able to bring him back. So sneaky good deals here and there. Yeah. They're getting really good value. So
the Panthers secondary is pretty much locked up now because they signed, I believe, Xavier Woods that we had at last Monday's show. So they got their safeties. They got 3 corners now. They're all relatively young. They brought in a veteran D tackle, linebacker, veteran center. They're improving. I wouldn't be shocked if they do make the move for a quarterback here.
Yeah, for sure. Saints signed Marcus May to a 3-year, $28.5 million deal, but that is cheaper than who they just lost, Marcus Williams. And then Jameis Winston, they brought him back. He's their starting quarterback at $14 million a year. So you can lock him into 5 touchdowns a game, probably, and also 5 interceptions. Bucks signed Logan Ryan, Rashad Perryman, and Russell Gage. Russell Gage is probably the best of that group, although Logan Ryan has still got some in the tank, I think.
Yeah, it gives them some depth at corner, which they desperately needed last year, and gives you 2 upside. Well, you brought back Perryman, but gives you an upside replacement for Antonio Brown, which this offense needed to focus on because Tyler Johnson and everyone wasn't clearly ready.
Yeah. I still wouldn't be shocked if Darden took a step forward and made his way on the field a little bit, but
He could.
it's Gage. I mean, Gage is the 3 there for sure, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
and Gage also tweeted out the iconic meme of like the point at their head after Matt Ryan got dealt, like he was kind of informed of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm out. I'm out this bitch.
Which is it's kind of interesting because that happened a week ago when Russell Gage signed. Pretty
Yeah,
close
he
to it,
signed
at
like
least.
the first day. He signed literally, I think it was the
Tuesday.
same day, or I think he signed the same. I think he signed technically before Brady announced he was back.
Maybe.
It
It
was
might have been
something.
after.
It was either that same day or right before it.
Yeah.
So smart move on his part, going to a winning program and getting to prove himself to a different
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna shoot
Yeah,
through
speed
these.
through these last ones, please.
Rams signed Allen Robinson to a massive deal. 49ers signed Georgia Odom. And then the Seahawks have done Seahawks things. They brought back Rashad Penny, Austin Blythe, Quentin Jefferson, Al Woods, Uchenna Nwosu. I really like the Nwosu deal. 2 years, $20 million. He's a good player. And then Artie Burns. Whatever.
I like the Penning deal for sure. I like the Quentin Jefferson signing. I don't know why you get Shelby Harrison trade, signed Quentin Jefferson, and then re-sign Al Woods to a 1-year, $9 million deal. Seems stupid. And Artie Burns, I think, is a good signing as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think their strategy is we need to stop the 49ers run game, and they're not going to do it. It doesn't matter. All right.
We'll see,
We need to talk about
seems
tight
like
ends.
win now moves. Just saying.
Yep.
Seems like they're gonna have a quarterback they trust. I don't know.
It's true. Panthers too. All right, let's talk about our top tight ends of the 2022 class. So this tight end class, I'm very, very high on it overall as a position group. I have a lot of day 2 grades on these guys. I think that we are looking at maybe 7 to 8 day 1 starters. And ultimately, we're just going to go the way we've gone through these is we just talk through one of our rankings and then say where we are at. And I think it's your turn, Randy, to go first. So who is your tight end one?
Bastard. Trey McBride. This wasn't what I thought my process would go out with. I had some early hope for Isaiah Likely and Jalen Watermeyer, and they were just lower on the board here. But Trey McBride is, he's a senior. He's a do-it-all guy. He's not the most athletic. He's not the best high pointer, but he's got solid, consistent hands. He's very physical. He's one of the better blockers. He actually is pretty good after the catch as well, and he has some of the better route running in the class. And honestly, for a guy that plays a lot of inline blocker, I think he's relatively versatile as well. I have him graded as the best in the class as versatility because I think while he's not this fantastic athlete, I'd be confident as him in the big slot role, whereas most guys I wouldn't. And I'd be confident in him as an H-back and everything else because we saw all of it. So he is a second-round grade for me. So it's not like Kyle Pitts or I think Freiermuth is a first for me as well. But McBride is a very good. He's a guy that if there's a tight end that's going to make an actual fantasy impact, I would bet on McBride over most because he's guaranteed to get snaps because of his blocking.
Yeah. And I'll say too, I think that people have concerns that he separated well because he was at Colorado State and the level of competition thing. And ultimately, he separates well with his footwork, but even if he doesn't, he's pretty good in contested catch situations. So he has strong hands. He can fight through some contact. And I think that will help him. I think using him, I'm not saying he is this person. I don't think he's the athlete that Travis Kelce is, but using him in a role similar to Travis Kelce, where he just runs short little curls and he's just a possession guy, I think that is like the ideal role for McBride.
Yeah, again, it's just like it's kind of the same thing as Freiermuth last year. I think he's probably a better after the catch and route runner than Freiermuth coming out, but also we got to see it more in that offense. But it's the same thing. It's not going to be right off the bat, I don't think. But Freiermuth was a tight end one a couple weeks, and I think McBride can do the same thing. And he fits many offenses.
Yeah. I think 4 years from now, we could be talking about him as a top 5 tight end in all of football. But,
yeah,
you know,
we'll see. We'll see.
We will see. All right. Who's your 2?
That's a fantastic question because I'm looking at her rankings. My 2 is Greg Dolcich.
Yes.
So he's a guy that a lot of people probably didn't hear of before the combine. And then right as the combine was starting, especially at NFL Network, he was the only tight end they seemed to want to talk about. And it's for good reason. He's very, very fucking good. Ironically, in our Madden league, I forgot I actually signed him randomly, and he was amazing for me, which is hilarious. That I then started watching his film. I was like, oh, that's why this guy's really good. Because he's arguably one of the better receiving tight ends on the class. He is a former wide receiver, as we have on here. And he's got a little bit of that work it trait, being a walk-on. So we always like to see that, but we also, like to see 5-star athletes as well. But if you're not going to do that, we like to see the grind. And he is a fantastic athlete. He absolutely killed it at the combine. He got a little bit above an 8, so it's well above average. But at the tight end position, he did very, very well. He's one of the faster ones as well. He's not the most versatile, and I like the little joke you have in there that is he more Hayden Hurst or Mark Andrews? I think he's closer to Mark Andrews, especially because Mark Andrews in college was a little bit of the yak, which he's got, and he was the catch and traffic and high point guy of the team, and that's what Dolcich is, and that's what he does best, in my opinion. One of the better of the class at that. I actually have him as the best yak tight end because I think he's the most consistent at it. And we saw it at a bigger level than a lot of the other guys that are good at it. So he is, a second round player as well, I believe, for me. I forget our cutoff at the moment. But he is very talented. He just sneaks into the bottom end of the second. That makes sense. But I am actually really excited for what he can do. But I think a lot of landing spot is going to dictate, because I do think he isn't. There's some effort with blocking, and we even saw that at the combine with the drills where you could see him really get into the bag, but he was very quickly to stand up. And that's when you do that with that drill, the bag stands right the fuck up, and you cannot move it. I don't know if anyone's actually pushed a sled when it's at that angle. It will not move. You will move. You're going to spin around. That is it. So yeah. I think he has a lot of technique to work on there, but good coaching at the next level. He could be the best tight end in the class when it's all said and done.
Well, and I think you see him go to a team that's going to use him as like a tight end 2 or just a receiving tight end, and you get very, very excited because you mentioned it. The yak ability that he possesses is ridiculous. He's very, very skilled at making people miss, but he's also just super freaking fast. He runs away from defenders, and you don't see that with tight ends very often. I think the wide receiver background helps. I think the fact that he has bulked up quite a bit throughout his collegiate career. It took him 2 years to even get on the field because he was in the process of just reforming his body. He came to school looking like a skinny wide receiver. And he said, I want to play for you. And they said, we need tight ends. He said, okay, I'm going to do that. And that's a very good trait. Every report is very, very positive about his character. I think there's a chance that we see Dolcich as the first tight end off the board when the NFL draft rolls around in the early second.
When I see Dolcich, I think this is going to be the best way to describe it. I think of a slightly less athletic Gesicki.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And
obviously Gesicki was like a 10. Athleticism with the RAS, so this is an 8, so it's a little bit worse. But I think a lot of that was like vertical and shit like that. So maybe that's more of a ceiling, but that's where like my mind goes to when I watch the film. Because Gesicki doesn't fucking block.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. I'm interested to see if he can this year in this new scheme, but that's beside the point. Who is your number 3 tight end, Randy?
Okay, it is Jeremy Ruckert for me. Best blocker in the class, hands down. I think we both agree on that.
Oh yeah,
A very wide catch radius, and we saw through the years with different quarterbacks as well, top level ones, obviously, but ability to make adjustments at the point of attack on the ball. It makes some weird but phenomenal catches as well. So that's something that you really like to see from a tight end that isn't like the best route runner or anything like that, and he's not the best after the catch either. But he's a guy that he if there's one in this class that I would pick to be, close to like Kittle in like the style of play, it would be Ruckert with McBride being the close second, because
Yeah.
I think blocking wise, Ruckert gives obviously the edge, and we know what the fuck Kittle does with blocking. But he's a very, very physical player, and he's got soft hands. He can get you at the high point catch point. He can climb the ladder and make all the plays that you need. So he's a red zone threat. His biggest thing is he had a lot of choice routes in college, and most of those were seams or curls. So his route running leaves a little bit to be desired, but look at the competition around him for actual touches. So he didn't need to, he literally just found his zone and sat, and that's perfectly fine. Well, most of these tight ends did that, by the way, in college. So, especially this class. So I would say arguably he's one of the least versatile guys because he's an inline blocker. Like Kittle goes out sometimes, and I think Rucker can do that, but I'd rather him just be inside and make the plays from there, because especially he is such a good blocker that a team like maybe the Bengals, they pick him up, and he's constantly on the left side of the line to help Williams constantly because we know Lyle Collins doesn't fucking need it. So just keep bridging that side, keep protecting the quarterback, and he's going to make some big plays. And honestly, that was a lot of Uzama's plays this year, was blocking to finding his own, and he excelled in it. So that'd be a landing spot I'd be excited about. So I think he's a very, very good player. He just sneaks into a second-round grade as well for me. And I'd be ecstatic. There's a good chance a lot of these tight ends go in the third. I'm not sure any go in the second. I think there's a chance 2 or 3 do, but we'll see.
Yeah. So Rucker, if you want to see some elite blocking from a tight end prospect, turn on the Purdue game, where Jeremy Rucker goes one-on-one against George Karlaftis, who is like widely regarded as a day 1 or 2 pick. I think people have cooled on him a little bit, and he might go round 2.
Pick, but
yeah, I think so. But it seems as though he's going to start to slide in the draft, which I understand. He's a power rusher, but being that he's a power rusher, he should be able to topple over tight ends. Rucker looks like a freaking left tackle out there, man. He is just very, very skilled.
It wasn't one play either. Like,
no, there's the whole
a lot
game.
of tight ends, they get that one good rep, or 2 good reps on that edge. When the edge didn't expect the tight end to sell his soul to try and block him. No, Rucker beat him into the ground.
Yeah,
consistently. He gets the leverage. And that's like, obviously I don't like saying these big name comparisons. Like, we don't want to say Kelsey, we don't want to say Kittle, but
I know
it's the style of play. And when you see that drive and that passion and intensity in the blocking from a tight end, there's at this point in the NFL, there's only a handful that do it, and no one does it better than Kittle. And that's what we saw. I've seen Kittle destroy defensive ends in the NFL. I can see Rucker doing that.
Yeah.
Could I see Rucker breaking off a 60-yard run and breaking 6 tackles as he does it? Maybe 1 tackle, maybe 2, maybe 30 or 40 yards. So, yeah, he's ridiculous. I get it. But, damn, he's so fun.
Yeah, he is. And so Rucker, my favorite fit for him is the New York Jets. I want to see him. I know they just signed 2 tight ends. I don't care. Cut him. Who cares?
What? I'll bite the bullet. I'll take him on the Raiders. Or the Browns. I'll take it because obviously he'd be a technically tight end 2 for the Raiders, and technically tight end 2 for the Browns. But it's what both teams want in that position, and I think it'd be a fantastic fit. But so same with the Bengals, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So I do want to mention I didn't. So Dolcich is my 3. Rucker is my 4. Who is your 4?
And your 2.
My 2.
It is Jelani Woods, who is a guy I did not know shit about. I'm being completely honest, until basically the combine, because he
Yeah.
was the guy that did every fucking drill and he killed every drill. And I was like, oh shit, I definitely got to watch that guy. And a guy that I'll talk briefly on later as well. Same kind of thing. But Jelani Woods was arguably the star of the combine. He is a 10 athleticism, so I think that pretty much says it. The dude's 6'6", 265. He's one of the heavier tight ends of the class and one of the tallest. He's an athletic freak and an athletic marvel. He can jump at the high point. The only thing with him is he was used super versatilely, and it's super weird with what Virginia did, because he was lined up all over the field, out of the backfield, in line, big slot, even at the X. But if he wasn't right off in the slot or right on the line, he didn't get the fucking ball, which is weird. I don't understand it, because they used
I
2
know.
tight ends as well, and both were relatively good. I will say that, but I think they could have gotten more out of him, and I think they would have been a better team for it, because that's how much he did.
Yeah.
And he dominated, finding the zones like we talked about with the other tight ends. He mainly ran jog streaks, is the best way I think I can say that, because he literally just takes 2 steps and then starts looking back at the quarterback and keeps kind of drifting downfield. But that's what the offense wanted, and it worked out most of the time, because he found the zone, and then he's off to the races, because he is one of the better yak players in this draft. While I don't have great route running stuff for him, because obviously he wasn't, told to run actual routes. He's got soft hands. He wins at the catch point. He's just not like physical. He's not a very good blocker either. The
No.
majority of the time for me, his blocking, he's weird, because like he gets to the spot.
He
It's the same thing as Watermeyer, where he's used in blocking, but for the most part, it's okay. I got you. He just catches and then he sits. And
he's very technically flawed as a
yes,
blocker too, and that's so
he's
part
raw.
of it.
He's
He's
very raw.
raw, and he's raw for the position too. He's only been playing it for 5 years. He was recruited as a quarterback, and then
That's
he
Virginia.
went yeah. So yeah, I mean he's fairly new to the position. I wouldn't push back on it, because you're right. His routes, the tree that he ran was nothing,
He ran an
but
option tree. He ran. It was either curl, a slant, or a streak. That was
yeah,
basically it. And
I
I will say, in fairness to him, our all 22 tape database, he's not fucking in it.
I know.
So it was a struggle to get
Yeah,
good game film, but I got some against UNC. I got some against some good opponents. And while he was used, he
yeah,
was used in this capacity.
yeah. I will say that he ran a flag route in one of his games that actually, like, I had to rewind it, because I was like, no, he hasn't shown any of that, and he had
Oh, wait.
so at the top of his stem, he has a little shake to him, and I was like, you can't be that big and have that much shake, and he doesn't consistently, but I saw the potential in him, and I couldn't shake it, ironically. And so I actually bumped him in route running, because I think that it's gonna be there. I think that when he develops, it will be there. He's my 2. I love Jelani Woods. I think, the problem is, like, I do see a lot of Mo Alley Cox in his game. Like, he's just a
Yes.
little lerpy.
Yeah. And that's part of my concern with him as well. Because I'm like,
Yeah,
well, I've seen this exact player.
yeah.
And
I do.
uh
I get nervous. I get
yeah.
nervous there, but
And while we continue to hype up Moai Cox and he gets more low level contracts, he still hasn't done anything.
this is true. Yeah. And right now he's projected to be Matt Ryan's starting tight end, which has been pretty productive over the
Yeah.
last career of Matt Ryan. Okay. Who is your 5? So what we'll do, like we've been
Finish
doing, because
5 and then go.
yeah, I'll have to finish my 5th player out, and then I want to talk about one of my 6 through 13.
Okay. So my 5 is Isaiah Likely. a guy that I brought up earlier on being a little disappointed in the season, but also in his athleticism mostly. We assumed he wasn't like superior athlete. I think we had him graded like 7.5 or 8. He's got a 5.33 RAS score. Not good, not good. And it was an unofficial score throughout the combine, and he did a couple of the tests at his pro day, I believe. But either way, it's gone down since his pro day. Like I think it was like a 6.5 or something. And it went down. What he does best is he has arguably the best hands in the class. He's one of the best, arguably the best high pointer of the class. He's an absolute weapon. He's a weapon on the outside. He was a focal point of Coastal Carolina's offense. He's good at catching traffic, even though he's not a physical player. He's one of the best yak ability guys. He will make some people miss and make some plays. He's a good route runner, not great. I don't have a great versatility score for him. I have 6.5. I don't know what yours actually was, because yeah, I just said he's moved all over the field. He doesn't block really. He wasn't used in line a lot. He was just used as kind of like a moving chess piece of the offense. But a lot of the times, it was, I would say it's like half and half, where the play goes to him or he's just out on one side, the plays go on the other side. So I don't really call that versatility necessarily, because I think versatility for a tight end is, able to be a completely dominant inline player, backfield player, slot player, X player. Like that's to get a full 10, you have to do shit like that. I don't think anyone in this class can do that, and I don't think likely showed that ability. So that's why I have that lower, and I have physicality and blocking lower. Everything else is great.
Yeah, I will say I was impressed in 2021 compared to 2020 with his effort level blocking, and I actually I commend him for that at least. But again, the technical skill is just not there. He doesn't understand leverage. He is often out in front of his toes, and so he is often thrown off balance. He doesn't really get clean blocks. He tries though, and I think it's tough because
effort is why he's got a 6 for me and not a 5.
That's a fair way to put it, and I think I did the same thing. Likely is just a guy. I think that he can be your jump ball red zone threat. I think that he's got the ability to go make a spectacular catch, similar to Ruckert. And he's not fast. That's the like he was fast compared to his competition, and then he ran slow, and I kind of had knocked him a little bit for that. I worry what his yak ability actually looks like at the NFL level, but I also think he could just settle into a possession style role and still be good because he's got soft hands.
I also don't need my tight end to catch screens, and like I don't need that offense. Some teams do. I don't for most of my teams. So, I think his upside is like, and obviously I'm not making the ceiling comp at all, but like style of play, upside would be like Darren Waller, what he's become, where he does stay in line, but he's truly like a possession weapon of the offense. He's not necessarily a big play. He's not necessarily a red zone threat even, but he is a focal point of the offense. That's what he was in college. I think he could do that at the next level with some seasoning. I don't think I expect that year one. Not like I thought I would get going into this year.
Yeah.
Because even watching the games, I was like, Jesus Christ, this dude just he's a monster. But like when you actually break it down, it's like, but doesn't do everything.
Yeah, that's my issue. That's why likely is my tight end 7 right now. I do want to talk about my 5 before we pick one of our last 5 to 7. So my 5 right now is Cade Otten, the tight end from Washington. I wrote here incredibly solid across the board. He is not elite at any given thing, but when I look at his film, I say this is probably a 10-year starter. I think he can be a 10-year starter at the position because I think what he gives you is a mixture of, the soft hands, the really good with contested catches. I think he's the best route runner outside of maybe Dolcich. And I think I may need to fix that. I think I have Dolcich knocked a little lower than him, and that's not right. But he's a good route runner. He can block. He can work inline. He can play in the slot. He's got all the versatility that you look for. And again, not elite at any of them, but really, really good at all of them. I think my lowest grade for him is maybe a 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
And
same.
that's just, and I think we get so enamored with like one thing, like Rucker. I am obsessed with that man's blocking skills and his physicality. Like I am obsessed with that. But he does leave a little to be desired in other areas. Cade doesn't do that. That's why he slides into my 5. And he was actually higher as of like a week ago. And then I revisited some stuff preparing for this, and I did knock him a little bit. I think the injury is significant enough where like I'm a little concerned about the rehab, but there are reports that he will be ready by training camp. It's a long time, and it's tough to get drafted and then miss your rookie minicamp, miss your OTAs. So I think this might be a year 2 type of breakout player, but I could see him being a solid NFL player for a long, long time.
If it wasn't for production, Cade Otten would be a top 5 player for me. In the tight end position, probably. Oh God, he'd probably be around. He'd probably be at the same or in between Woods and Likely for me. So while he's 7 for me, it's very close. He's got no production in college. It's just plain simple. It's why he has to be lower.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, Washington quarterback situation was terrible last year.
Yeah,
So hopefully
it's perfectly
they fix
fair.
that.
It's understandable. It's just how it is.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Why don't you pick a name from your 6 through 14 that you want to talk about? Just one.
Oh, that's not fair.
I've already determined the one I want to talk about. So
Okay,
you
well,
want me to go first?
yeah, you go first. So I talked a lot about these tight ends. I kind of wanted you to get the reins.
This is fair. So I can't just pick one. So I'm gonna just mention really quickly. I know. So James Mitchell was a lot higher on my list as of like a couple weeks ago. Heard some things regarding his injury history that I believe knocked him down. A really good player. Reminds me a little bit of what we think Jelani Woods could be. But I think Mitchell is a really, really good receiving tight end. But that's not the one I want to talk about. I want to talk about Daniel Bellinger. Danny Bellinger, the kid out of San Diego State, he lit up the combine too. I mean, I believe, is what, a 9 point, what is he? He's a
9.64.
9.64 relative athletic score, which is, I believe, second out of everyone in this class or close to it, second or third. He's a player. His motor runs hot, is what I wrote down here. So Bellinger is that guy that is going to go 9 million miles an hour every single snap. When I watch him, I see a lot of Josiah DeGuara for the Packers, which I know doesn't sound like a good thing just based on what he is, but he has a fullback mentality every single snap. And he actually lined up in the backfield quite a bit. He's a really physical player. His blocking technique just is not there yet. He is often very, very vertical. And again, he's not a guy that understands leverage really well right now, but the effort is maximum. He also displayed really soft hands. He was not used. The San Diego State offense is trash. He was often used on little flat routes, and he would take them and then he would go. But I really like him. Oh, we've got a fan.
You get a fanfare for Bellinger. I like it.
This is good. But he's a player that I did not get around to for a very long time, and I studied him last night actually, and I was very, very impressed. I think this is a guy that could get drafted higher than we think, and I think that he can be that like knockoff Rucker for you, or a DeGuara, which I think is a good role for him.
I studied him today. He's very, very raw for a redshirt senior, and that's my downfall for the guy.
That's fair.
Personally, as of right now, he's a fantastic athlete. Honestly, insane, if we're being honest. So good on that. My quick one, I kind of talked bad about him already. I want to go with Jalen Watermeyer. That's who I want to talk about here. He is my tight end 9. So he's not a standout player in production or anything, but I think it speaks volumes that coaches like him. And I think that's evident by the combine, and especially where anytime they want to teach the drill on how it's going, Jalen Watermeyer is the guy that's the dummy. He is told how to show everyone how to do it. I think while he is not the best athlete in the class, he does not have a final RS score or anything, but we don't have him as a very good athlete. So if he tests better than that somehow, that's just going to bump him up the list. But he gets the high points. He is an ideal catch and traffic guy, one of the best in the class, where I feel safe with him catching the ball in any zone. He's catching it. He's not going to drop it. He's very, very fucking physical. And I think he just continues in that aspect. I don't think he has the softest hands. I think he has decent hands. But because the way he plays position, I don't think he really needs it. I think it's telling how good he is at the jump balls when he doesn't have that good of hands. That's the big thing for me. He's not a fantastic blocker. He's not a plus athlete, so he's not going to have good yak or anything like that. He's not a tremendous router because he wasn't asked to. Kind of the same as we talked about with Woods earlier. Just wasn't asked to, and he was asked to do a lot as a blocker. And he's very, for me, I think he's versatile because he was played kind of all over as well. And he was definitely played all over around the line. He was in line, he was fullback, he was running back, he was basically a second quarterback for the couple snaps. It was weird. But I think he's very versatile, and he did split out a lot. He was used in that capacity as a focal point of the offense as well. But how often they trusted him to block when his technique and drive is not great, that's kind of strange to me. But I think he showed so much with his physicality. They just trust him. He was actually one of the best cut blocking tight ends of the class, I thought. So I gave him a little bit of bump in blocking to 6.5. But with him, he was asked to do it so much, and he was actually asked to block ends a ton. So I thought it was really weird. But a lot of the times he would just stalemate. And while tight ends, that is fine to do because you're basically just giving a seal block for a quarterback to get the ball off, or you're just getting that extra little bit of a hole there for a running back, or you're just getting the backside guy off the running back's ass. So you don't need to do a ton of blockers, a tight end necessarily, but it's always better to get that drive with it. But I will say I would say at least 85% of the time in the right position, and he would stalemate and he would drop his hips, get up, and then he would just stand up with the player. So there's some stuff to work with there, and if you can get a little bit more out of the blocking, I think he's going to be a plus asset for our team.
Yeah, he's got a lot of drops, man.
He does, and that was also part of the hands dropping down.
I know, and that's like it's clean drops too. Like in contested, he's better with contested catches.
Yeah.
It's like he needs a guy draped all over him, which is really strange. I did like him. I thought he was like my tight end 2, tight end 3 at one point.
I thought he would be top for me.
Heading into the season, he was my 2, and so I'm sad that he's dropped so far. But I also think that he could be that guy that's drafted on day 3. I don't think he's a day 2 pick. I think he's drafted on day 3 and probably finds himself competing for snaps. But here's the thing with all of these guys and guys that we didn't even talk about, and this is an influx of talent at the position in the NFL. The NFL is desperate for tight ends. Tyler Conklin is a good tight end. Tyler Conklin just got paid for what he is. CJ Uzama, same thing. Good tight end, but was really not very good for quite a few years there. Has a breakout year, gets paid. We're seeing guys like Evan Ingram get a ton of money when he has been a pretty bad player.
Drops again.
Yeah, exactly. He's been a pretty bad player. So I think what this is just this entire class is going to just infuse the NFL with talent at the position, at a position where teams are more they have a desire to put 2 tight ends on the field and run this outside zone stuff and use them as chess pieces. I think that's the next revolution in the NFL is just using your tight ends in different ways. And I'm excited. I love this class. I can't wait to see where they all get drafted and how high.
Yeah, and I forgot to say for your mention of Bellinger, there's going to be a lot of teams where we have him a 3rd round, 4th round grade. There's going to be a lot of teams day 3 that are going to be clamoring for Bellinger. Ideally, I think a little bit, our favorite teams, you always want every player that you think has promise. But I think one team, and this speaks to it more than anything, I think the Titans are going to be targeting Bellinger. We know what Vrabel does. We know he loves blocking, and Bellinger has the athleticism to possibly upgrade and replace from what they lost in Jonnu Smith, develop that the way they did with Jonnu. But he's got the blocking to be an effective player early on in his career while he develops everything else. Because I don't think he's a good route runner. I don't think, catching traffic and stuff, I think he gets drops at times. I don't think he's a good high pointer necessarily either. But he's a very, very plus athlete, and he's very raw for a redshirt senior as well. Just not used a lot in the scheme. So I think as a tight end 2 for the team, tight end 3, he can really eventually be a good player for the Titans.
Yeah.
Or any team, but that's just one of the teams I'm like, it makes so much sense on a day 3 pick early to get him.
I can't wait until we're watching the draft and that's where he goes and we are like, hey, we said that. Randy said that.
I'm getting good at this.
Yeah. All right, guys, that will do it for this episode. I know we went long. Thank you guys for joining us.
I was going to say, you want to run through your 6 through 14 or whatever quick?
Yeah, so my 6... Oh, I closed out of it. So my 6 is Cole Turner, who a guy that we probably should have talked about because he was really good. He's good at the Senior Bowl. Really good tight end. Just didn't make the list. Then Isaiah Likely, Bellinger, James Mitchell, guys I mentioned. Charlie Kohler could be the best receiving tight end in the class. I have some concerns here and there. Good player, though. Jake Ferguson, Jalen Watermeyer, Grant Calcaterra. I think Chig Okonkwo from Maryland, had I studied him, would be ahead of maybe a couple of these guys. And then I also have heard really, really good things about Curtis Hodges, but haven't gotten to study him just yet.
I haven't gotten to him either. I there was a couple that have were athletic standouts that I thought about doing, but I chose Chig, and then you talked about Bellinger, so I did him late. Yeah. But my 6, Mitchell, 7, Otten, 8, Turner, 9, Watermeyer, 10, Jake Ferguson, 11, Kohler, 12, Bellinger, 13, Chig, Okonkwo, and then Grant Calcaterra is my last one that I have fully graded. But all in all good day 2, day 3 prospects. I think they're all easy players that we just mentioned, at least, that are on rosters next year. And it's rookie tight ends. They probably won't do a ton, except a couple maybe. But eventually they're going to be good prospects to have on your team. So maybe in a rookie draft, you take a 5th round flyer on one of these guys that we, kind of highlighted, like Bellinger, and just hope for upside. And that's what we've seen over the years, kind of just random hits with just upside plus players late in drafts.
Yeah. All right. Now that will do it for this episode. Again, thank you guys for joining and sticking around if you did. And if you're catching it on the podcast, thank you guys for listening. Schedule's a little wonky here. So we obviously free agency in this crazy offseason has put a wrench in what we had planned to do around this time. We had planned to have quick little segments talking about NFL news. However, that is impossible with this year, and especially these first 2 weeks. We were supposed to do a Dynasty Superflex rookie mock draft. I think Randy and I will talk about it. I want to combine the offensive line and defensive line episodes, which is 4 positions, and it will be a lot. Really 5 positions if we count centers as well. Yeah. But that will allow us time to do either a Dynasty Superflex rookie mock, or we have not yet done a post-free agency mock draft, which we did not fit into our schedule initially. And so I know we have the mega mock later. We'll see. So we're going to have to talk about this, though.
We'll figure it out, but we are going to go, no matter what, even if we pile some of these together, we are going to finish with offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, and DBs. And then the week of the draft, we're going to have 2 episodes that week, I believe, of the mega mock. One Monday, one Wednesday, the day before the draft, where the first round's Monday, second and third round Wednesday. That's been our formula for the last 2 years with our friends and partners of the show, and I think we're going to do that again. So maybe we can combine these last 4 positions in different ways and add in some more stuff. We'll figure that out, but we are going to continue with the Friday fixes. Again, not going to even discuss who it could be Friday because the last 2 weeks it's changed the day of. And while I suggested it most of the time, I also was annoyed that I had to make the show time. So I'm not going to do shit until I know this time.
We
and then
could
when
pivot
Baker's
to what we
traded to the line or some team that we haven't talked about somehow, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. But yeah, that's kind of the update and kind of where we're going. But we will finish all of these before the NFL draft, like Randy said. And a lot of good stuff coming your way, guys. Very excited for that. So
obviously, if you're not EP leagues, you're still hearing names and players that you want to look out for past this episode. If it's just pure fantasy, maybe not. But these players are going to be especially vital. These are some of the best players in the class, these next 4 position groups, plain and simple. So if you want to learn about these players in a little bit more in depth, a little bit breakdown strength for these players before your team picks them, or see which one you want to decide you want your team to get in whatever mock draft you end up posting on Twitter, I think these are going to be fun shows, and we love doing these positions as well, especially offensive line. I think we're going to that's why I'm nervous about combining, because offensive defensive line is usually where we disagree on at least a couple people. So we'll get through the grades and decide.
It's true. I will say too, this is our favorite part. We've gone through the fantasy relevant positions, and we are here to give fantasy advice, and we are here to consider that. But we're a football podcast too, and the trench is very fun to scout. It's my favorite 2 positions, I think, is edge and offensive line. So
it is what I know. It's what I did, so it's what I love to do. And let's be honest, with how much edges have been ingrained and most teams having 2 edges, there's less of a discrepancy between left and right tackle. There's less discrepancy of the guards because the D tackles are getting better at pass rush. Centers are always important, so it's still vital, and I think it's becoming more vital with how athletic the defense is getting. So, and then you got the defensive positions, which you have to talk about these absolute freak athletes. So it's always fun to watch, especially linebackers, in my opinion. But
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about those 2. Well, we'll have to talk off the air, but we need to go. I need to upload this, and I need to go to sleep because I work in the morning. So for Randy Hall, I'm Preston Williams. We will talk to you guys on Friday. Later.